They whispered the moment I walked in hushed voices, like needles piercing through the dark silk of my deep blue dress. Who is she? The cleaning lady Lucian brought her. Why her? I gripped his hand tighter, as if clinging to reality. The room sparkled with crystal lights. The clinking of glasses echoed around us, and the upper crust of society turned their heads to follow our every step. Standing there beneath the chandeliers among the tuxedos and tailored gowns, Lucia Monroe saw only one thing: eyes that needed no words yet judged with every glance. They looked at me like I was some pathetic joke, a cleaning woman. On the arm of Lucien Blake, the youngest CEO of Blake & Lang, a man who had graced the cover of Forbes, owned 3 investment funds, a yacht named after himself, and a solid rung on the ladder of power. But they didn't know. They didn't know me. I didn't know the secret I'd kept for the last 7 months. While they were counting diamonds around someone's neck, I was quietly building an empire, a smarter, cleaner one, where robots clean based on data analytics, where I stand in the server room, not beside a mop bucket. Tonight, they will know. Tonight, they'll be forced to look again. I am not just the woman in the blue dress. I am the final rebellion against prejudice. And this dress, it's not my ticket into their world. It is freedom. It is me at last. 7 months ago, it was an ordinary night like any other. I was dusting the shelves in penthouse 56B of the Lapis Tower. The lamplight was dim. The scent of oak lingered from the last floor cleaning. I wore headphones, jazz flowing steadily into my mind, muting the world outside. I didn't hear the elevator stop on the private floor. I didn't hear the door open. And when I turned around, the glass vase nearly slipped from my hands. Lucien Blake. He stood there, tie loosened. Charcoal's gray suit was lightly wrinkled, as he'd just walked out of a tense meeting. He looked at me, not surprised, not angry, just curious. "I thought you'd be back tomorrow morning," I stammered, pulling out my earbuds, heart pounding like a drum. He shrugged. "Flight got canceled. Am I interrupting?" Unlike other clients who usually demanded I clean quickly and disappear, Lucien asked my name. When I replied Lucia, he smiled faintly. "Lucien," he said, pointing toward the steaming kettle. "Do you drink tea?" I blinked. A billionaire invited me, the woman who mopped his floors, to have tea at midnight. I should have said no. My shift wasn't finished. But the way he looked at me, not like help, but like a human being, a real person, it made me nod. We sat across from each other on high stools, a cup of jasmine tea steaming in my hands. He asked about the book on the table. I spoke of Greek philosophy, my childhood in Brooklyn, and why I still cleaned with my hands, even while managing over 200 employees. He listened in silence, truly listened. It was as if every word I said held value and my truth mattered. When I left at 2 a.m., he walked me to the elevator. No small talk, no unnecessary pleasantries, just one sentence. "Next time you make the tea, I like your taste in blends." I thought it was just a strange moment. It was a rare crossing between two worlds. I was wrong. And that tea, that seemingly trivial cup, became the first symbol of trust between two people who didn't belong in the same world. I thought that tea night was just a fluke, a stray breeze in the meticulously choreographed world of the ultra-wealthy. But a week later, when I walked into 56B, I found a note on the kitchen counter, thin, tidy handwriting. "The book you mentioned. The Republic. I'm trying it." Full of debate. Like you. I froze. Not because it was poetic, but because it was hidden. It meant only for me, the person cleaning the kitchen that night. The following week, another slip of paper waited on the coffee table. "You once mentioned the film, Her. That final scene is haunting. I still can't shake it." I held the note. My heart skipped a beat. 3 weeks later, we had our first date. Not at a Michelin-starred restaurant, not in a bulletproof glass boardroom, but at a tiny Italian eatery tucked into a Brooklyn alleyway. He stood outside holding a bouquet of wildflowers, not roses. They remind me of you, not trying to be beautiful, just being. I laughed out loud, forgetting I wore a Zara dress and secondhand shoes. Over dinner, I told him about the first clients who believed in my service. I have used AI to optimize cleaning systems, from microdust detecting sensors to VR-based staff training. He didn't chuckle like the older clients used to. He looked at me as if he were talking to a seasoned founder. When we parted, I asked, "Why me?" Lucien didn't hesitate. "Because you quiet me. My world is loud and competitive, but when you speak, I want to listen." After that night, the notes kept coming, each one waiting for me during every visit. A quote. It's a movie suggestion, a passing thought, like tiny, honest connections tucked into silence. Every time I read one, I pasted it into my notebook, not because I expected anything, but because I knew even in something undefined, sincerity still deserves to be kept. That Thursday afternoon, I received a message. "Tonight, if you're free. Mint tea. Balcony, 56th floor. I want to hear more about your AI ideas in the cleaning industry." That seemingly small teacup had become the first valid symbol of trust. Not fine wine or 25-year-old whiskey, just tea, properly brewed, placed beside an empty chair. For me, I told him about the sensors I'd been testing, about the microdata collected from smart vacuums used to detect mold and airborne pathogens proactively before the customer ever noticed. Why invest in tech? For cleaning, he asked. I looked down at the city lights flickering beneath us, because people think cleaning is beneath them. But if I can prove it takes science, strategy, and investment, they'll start respecting the people who do it. Lucien didn't respond, but when he poured more tea, his hand didn't shake. But then, the next morning, he vanished from messages. 1 day. 2. By the 3rd, I received a call from an unknown number. His voice weary Amara. "I need to breathe. My board just met. Someone photographed me on the balcony with you, and those notes in the apartment. They think I'm distracted, that I'm letting emotion derail me." I bit my lip. This was precisely what I'd feared from the beginning. That afternoon, his mother, Margot Beaumont, the same woman once featured on the cover of Forbes as the financial queen of Europe, called me. "You're a smart woman, Amara. So surely you understand that relationships with this kind of disparity never truly lead anywhere." Her tone was calm, not threatening, but every word felt like a blade slipping beneath the skin. I didn't cry. I answered I used to believe that too, until your son asked me about the movie Her. That night, I returned to the apartment. A new note lay silently on the kitchen counter. I stayed silent when I should have stood up. "I'm trying to make it right. If you still want to tell your stories, the balcony's still there. The tea's already made." The balcony teacup was no longer trusted. It was an apology, an invitation to return to where it all began. And I did go back. But this time, I brought my AI prototype notebook with me. That night, I didn't knock. The apartment was already open, the lights dim, and the mint tea on the balcony still warm, as if he had been sitting there for a long time waiting. "I should have protected you from the start," Lucien said softly, his eyes avoiding mine as I placed my technology notebook on the table. Instead of blame, I opened the notebook. Hand-drawn diagrams of AI cleaning systems using molecular sensors processes powered by renewable energy, and a collaborator network managed through machine learning models. "I don't need you to protect me," I said. "I need someone who believes that what I'm building is worth serious investment." He nodded slowly, like punishing himself with every motion. The next day, I received an unexpected call. Not from Lucien, but from his company's board of directors. A woman named Camille, her voice sharp and cold. We'd like to meet, to understand more about this so-called cleaning AI. Conference room, 48th floor. Floor-to-ceiling glass looked out over the city. Inside were 6 people in gray suits. An alpha circle surrounded me as if I were a witness, not a founder. We reviewed your proposal. It's intriguing, said a middle-aged man, eyes glued to his tablet. But your model requires R&D funding 10 times higher than the average cleaning company. Do you believe that someone, with your background, can achieve what major corporations haven't dared to try? I smiled and pulled from my pocket a tiny folded note, handwritten by Lucien. Your idea about microdust sensors. It stayed with me. The world doesn't need another app. It needs someone who sees what others overlook. I placed the note on the table in the center of their skeptical stares. I don't need all of you to believe in me. Just one person to go first. And I already have that. On my way out of the building, I saw Lucien waiting in the hallway. He didn't say a word. I just held out another note in the handwriting I now knew by heart. If they say no, I'll still invest. I smiled, but the tears came anyway. Because those small pieces of paper weren't just messages. They were symbols of something real. That night, I mopped the floor of the 56th floor penthouse again. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to remember where everything began. The gold-foiled invitation sat still on the table like a dare. Sterling Investment Fund 100th Anniversary Gala. Dress code formal black tie. I read the invitation repeatedly, hoping one word might change. But it didn't. Polite, elegant, and full of implications. I wasn't invited as a CEO, just Amara Lucien's guest. I slowly opened the wardrobe. Inside were rows of neat work suits, technician uniforms, and a few business dresses. And one deep sea blue dress. The one Lucien's stylist once sent over, I had never worn it. It made me feel like I was borrowing someone else's skin. But tonight, for the first time, I didn't feel ashamed. I felt free. The blue dress was no longer camouflage. It was my flag. The Empyrean Hotel lit up like a miniature galaxy on the night of the event. Chandeliers, glass candles, a live symphony orchestra, and all the stares. They saw me, the woman who once pushed trash bins down their office hallways, now walking beside one of the most influential men in finance. I saw them whisper, and I saw her, Eleanor Reynolds, Lucien's mother, former board chairwoman known for rejecting 7 out of 10 female-led startups. She approached with a polite smile and a dagger behind her Cartier glasses. Lucien, bringing your partner here is certainly unconventional. I squeezed Lucien's hand, but he responded first, his voice ice cold. Unconventional isn't bad. It's usually the first step toward progress. I turned to her. Thank you for creating a platform like this, even though years ago it had no place for someone like me. I looked her straight in the eyes, smiling steadily. It's different now. I'm not here to ask permission. I'm here to invest. Across the room, a group of shareholders, the same ones who once rejected my AI proposal, were murmuring. Lucien pulled out a tablet and opened a presentation, multi-level sensor-based cleaning and automation system, first commercial rollout. Tonight, I'm announcing a strategic investment. Pristine Systems, the first company to integrate AI, not only into technology, but into a philosophy that honors service work. Applause started with a few young investors. Then it spread, then surged. Lucien leaned in and whispered, "They still don't know everything, do they?" I shook my head, eyes gleaming. "Not yet. I haven't told them about the nano dust sensor robot prototypes we're testing. And I haven't told them that this AI system is designed to retrain people, not replace them." And I knew right then, that night, I was no longer Amara, the night shift girl on the 56th floor. I was a leader, in a dress the color of freedom. A shattering sound rang from the back of the hall, a haunting clunk. The image suddenly flickered on the giant screen at center stage, where Lucian had just been presenting a demo of the sensor-powered automated cleaning system. A line of code went haywire. The screen turned black. All chatter stopped. Every eye turned toward the stage where Amara's AI system, her life's work, was making its debut. Lucian immediately looked over at me, his eyes asking silently, "Could it be a hack?" I stepped up onto the stage, the hem of my blue dress swaying with each step, no longer just a guest, but the only person who could resolve the crisis. A voice rang out from the audience. "The world's not ready to hand over their homes to machines." An old-school shareholder from Sterling, who had consistently opposed automation, stood up. "And how exactly do you plan to handle this, Ms. Self-proclaimed CEO of a cleaning company?" I didn't take my eyes off the black screen. My hand quietly reached into my pocket, pulling out my phone. The remote system control app is still running in the background. I spoke clearly. We're not replacing humans. We're empowering them with technology. And every system we build comes with a failsafe. A single swipe. The screen lit up again. The system rebooted in safe mode. Then, footage rolled of real people using pristine technology cleaning staff, assisted by infrared sensors, air quality checks, run by AI robotic helpers, working with not in place of people. It wasn't machines doing everything. It was humans elevated. Silence hovered for a beat, and then applause erupted. And at that moment, Lucian's mother, Eleanor, looked at me for the first time, not with skepticism, but with a mix of confusion and reluctant respect. Lucienne stepped forward and took my hand in front of the entire room. She just saved my reputation. I turned to the shareholder who had challenged me and smiled. The world doesn't wait for people to be ready. It moves forward because some are brave enough to test what others won't. The final paper note, once a symbol of quiet connection, was gently placed in my hand by Lucian as we walked off stage. "Thank you for no longer hiding. Now the world knows exactly who they underestimated." The 42nd floor waiting lounge at Sterling Group, a space reserved only for closed-door meetings where strategic decisions are born, was also where Amara first met with Eleanor Kingsley, Lucienne's mother. She sat on a storm gray velvet chair. Silver hair neatly pinned up her gaze, as cold and reflective as glass, scanning every detail of my outfit, the simple blazer-tailored black pants and the tiny teacup pin on my lapel. The same pin Lucian gave me after our first tea, a symbol of trust now being tested. "Sit." She didn't ask. She didn't invite me. I sat down back straight, carrying the calm I had built through every hour of scrubbing floors every night, debugging flawed software. "You're clever." Eleanor began, her voice slow and sharp like a knife honed carefully, and more capable than I expected. "Thank you," I replied. "But I doubt you called me here just to compliment me." "Correct. I came to ask, where exactly do you plan to take my son?" I swallowed, not from fear, but because I knew I was sitting across from a living relic of empire, a woman who once dominated global mergers, now guarding her final legacy, her only son. "I don't want to take Lucien anywhere," I said. "I want to stand beside him." Eleanor narrowed her eyes as if peering into the places where I used to hide myself. "You may have a company, money, but you don't belong in this world." I smiled, then calmly pulled a presentation board from my bag, an expansion plan for pristine solutions. "Which world are we talking about, ma'am?" "Because this is the one I'm helping modernize. Cleaning technology powered by residential data analytics, toxic air sensors, and behavior learning AI, all developed by me and my engineering team." Eleanor looked at the blueprint, but she didn't touch it. "You did all this. For what? To impress me? To prove you're worthy?" I shook my head. "No. I did it so people like me, the silent workers, the ones never given a shot, they can run entire systems if they dare to step forward. The room fell silent. I stood ready to leave. But before opening the door, I turned back. I don't need your approval. I only need you to understand one thing: I'm not here to reach above my station. I'm here because your son was the first person to invite me to tea while I was still wearing rubber gloves. The teacup pin caught the soft yellow light shimmering briefly. A final signal. A message without words. As I exited the room, Eleanor didn't call me back. But she watched me for a long, long time. And for the first time in my life, I felt a wordless respect from someone who once believed I didn't belong in her world. 7 men and 2 women sat in a circle around a walnut table over 3 meters long. In front of them, the Sterling Group logo is engraved in silver. Montblanc pens aligned precisely on their briefing papers. The air cold and brittle like glass. Lucien sat at the head of the table. Charcoal tie, loosened face composed but taut. "We need clarification," began board member Barrows, his voice sharp as a razor. Why would a Wharton-trained CEO capable of handling global investments propose funding for a cleaning company? Pristine Solutions. Lucien replied steadily, "Is no longer a traditional cleaning company, but it's still run by your girlfriend," someone added. Doesn't that raise concerns of a conflict of interest? Lucien placed both hands on the table. He had prepared for this. "I'm in love with a woman who doesn't care about my title or money. I proposed this investment not out of emotion, but out of data." He pressed a button. The screen behind him lit up, showing the presentation slides. Toxic air sensor technology, powered by AI. Mapped energy usage cycles in high-rise buildings. Algorithms predicting hazardous waste leaks in real time. This is what she's building. A platform that will save millions for real estate conglomerates in the next decade by cutting operating costs, improving labor safety, and contributing to the ESG goals all of you preach in the media every day. Silence blanketed the room. But then, even if these numbers check out, one member spoke up, "She's still a PR liability. Are you willing to stake Sterling Group's reputation on a personal relationship?" Lucien stood. "I'm not staking. I'm committing." He walked to the whiteboard and pulled a photo from his pocket. A snapshot of Amara standing in the middle of her tech team, holding a blueprint of a compact mobile air scanner with the pristine logo visible. "This is not someone I endorse. This is a strategic partner other firms will scramble to acquire if we don't act first. And if this costs me my seat on the board, that's a price I'm willing to pay." A ripple of murmurs spread. An older director squinted. "Do you know what you're challenging?" Lucien met his gaze. "I do. I refused to look back one day knowing I had the chance to drive change and let it pass because I feared how it would look." The boardroom sank into a heavy silence. But Amara stood just outside the glass doors in the hallway, not hiding, not waiting to be rescued. In her hand was a fresh technical blueprint, and in her eyes, the look of someone who wasn't here to be saved, but ready to co-create a better world. The news exploded like a bomb in the financial world. Sterling Group CEO dating janitor. Turns out she's a secret CEO. Love story. Or PR stunt. The cleaning lady, who swept Lucien Sterling off his feet. Social media split into 2 camps. One praised Amara as a symbol of resilience and intelligence. The other mocked her as a queen of disguise, a manipulator playing the long game with emotions. Amara walked into the Monday morning press conference at Meridian Hotel, a place where she once silently mopped floors on the night shift. Today she stood center stage, beneath a banner that read, "Introducing Tech Clean, Revolutionizing Sanitation Through Technology." Below, hundreds of camera flashes blinked. Reporters gripped their mics primed for a takedown. But she didn't flinch. "I'm Amara Bennett, founder and CEO of Pristine Solutions. Some say I pretended to be poor to test people's kindness. Others say I climbed up using my relationship with Lucienne Sterling. She paused, her eyes sweeping the front row, where Lucienne's mother sat arms crossed, expression skeptical, as if bracing herself against the quake, shaking her world. Amara raised a small silver-white device, no bigger than a lighter. This is Lung Light, the first device in the U.S. capable of warning sanitation workers about toxic gases in high-rises before they inhale them. Designed by an MIT-trained engineer, made from recycled materials, costs 1/10 of traditional safety gear. This is technology, not a publicity stunt. The screen behind her lit up. A short video played. A janitor crouched to clean a floor. The sensor suddenly glowed red, detecting methane leakage in a hotel basement. Next scene, a server room was saved thanks to a 4-minute early warning preventing millions in data loss. I once cleaned these hotel floors at night. I know what it feels like to be invisible. But I didn't build a company to get revenge. I built it to protect those who have never been asked, "Are you okay?" A reporter stood. "So what's real between you and Lucian? Is this just a strategic partnership?" The room froze. Amara inhaled deeply, then slowly unfolded a small, creased note, one of the handwritten scraps Lucienne used to leave her. His slanted writing read, "You said everything connects in silence. Then I'll stand quietly beside you if you ever need me." She folded the note back, fire glowing in her eyes. "I don't need anyone to fight my battles, but I won't turn away a man who's willing to stand in a boardroom and risk his power to protect a belief. The cup of tea he poured me that first night is now a symbol of trust." Behind her, Lucienne's mother slowly stood up. All eyes turned. She stepped forward onto the stage. "I used to think she wasn't worthy," she said. "But today, I see clearly maybe I lacked the vision to see beyond the surface." No one spoke. Then the clapping began, hesitant at first, but soon it erupted. Thunderous, unstoppable. 3 weeks after the historic press conference, Amara was invited to be a keynote speaker at the National Conference on Technology and Sustainable Development, gathering top CEOs, venture capitalists, and the Minister for Green Transition. She was the only black female speaker, and also someone who had mopped the floors of that very hall 6 years ago. But as she was sound-checking in the auditorium, a message popped up on her phone. "Emergency meeting. Sterling Group, Board of Directors." At that very moment, Lucian was seated in the boardroom on the 47th floor of Sterling Group headquarters, facing 8 board members, older, wealthier, and mostly from a world Amara had never been invited into. Mr. Bain, chairman of the board, looked Lucian straight in the eye. "You know we've always trusted you, but lately, the company's name has been tied to headlines we didn't ask for. Who you're dating isn't the issue, but when investors question whether Sterling is still stable, we're obligated to respond." Lucian said nothing. His gaze drifted quietly to the image on the screen behind them. A tabloid front page showing him and Amara holding hands, with the headline screaming, "The $4 billion man, controlled by a sanitation CEO." Another director chimed in, voice low. "She's too bright, we admit it, but that makes it even riskier when people believe she's pulling the strings. Before you continue this relationship, we need assurances that Sterling's power structure won't sway with your emotions. If you want to remain CEO, then you'll have to choose. Choose between Amara and the position." Meanwhile, backstage at the conference, Amara answered an interview before her speech. A young reporter asked, "What's been the hardest part of rising from the basement to the main stage of the financial world?" Amara smiled, her eyes distant. "Keeping your heart unchanged, while the world keeps demanding you become someone else." She clutched a small folded note in her pocket. Lucian's handwriting is still crisp. "I don't need you perfect, just real." But what if that man was being forced to choose between her and the career he had spent his life building? Back in the boardroom, the air was heavy like lead. Lucien slowly rose to his feet. He unfastened the sterling prototype watch from his wrist, a signature symbol of CEO authority in the firm. "No one controls me," he said, voice steady. "But I won't trade away the one woman who made me question who I am, not what I own." He placed the watch on the table. "If that's the price to live honestly, I'm willing to pay it." Silence gripped the room. But then, Mr. Baines slowly nodded. "I used to think the young only knew feelings. But perhaps it's feeling this company has been missing for far too long." He pushed the watch back toward Lucien. "Keep it. But remember, don't drop both precious things just because you're trying too hard to hold them at once." That evening at the conference, as Amara stepped onto the podium, she didn't know whether Lucien would be there. But in the third row between investors and ministers, he sat quietly. No cameras, no spotlight, only a proud gaze and a subtle nod that said, "I choose you, and I choose myself." Mas. 1 week after the conference, TechClean officially launched a technology platform integrating artificial intelligence and smart sensors designed to automate cleaning processes, analyze environmental conditions, and train staff based on real-time data. Amara stepped confidently onto the stage on the massive LED screens at the center of the Tech Expo. No one is born with the keys to success, but we can forge them ourselves day by day through work and belief in ourselves. She raised a white teacup, the now familiar symbol from her first meeting with Lucien, and smiled. Sometimes the warmest cup of tea served at the latest hour is exactly the beginning of something new. After a wave of applause as Amara was preparing to leave the stage, a familiar figure stepped out from the audience. Victoria Langston, who once mocked her at that first gala, is now wearing a Chanel coat, holding an iPad and an investment file. "Congratulations. I can't deny it. You've made this city reevaluate its prejudices." Her voice was sweet, but beneath it, the same old steel. "I represent a group of strategic shareholders. We want to invest $80 million into TechClean, but..." Amara raised an eyebrow. "There's always a but." Victoria smiled. "We want to own the core of the system, the machine learning algorithm, and control over the data models." The air immediately turned heavy. Amara's advisory team froze. "In exchange, you'll get a global distribution network, unlimited financial resources, and TechClean will become the industry standard in 12 months. Lucien, standing in the back, said nothing. He knew this was a choice between global scale and actual ownership. Amara didn't respond right away. She asked for time to think. That night in her apartment, she reopened the small box of old handwritten notes, the ones Lucien had left for her. "Don't forget today. You made me believe in people more than numbers." She looked at the deep blue dress, the same one she had worn at that gala long ago. And finally, she looked into the mirror and saw a woman who no longer needed the world to recognize her with glamour but with real value. The next morning in the boardroom in front of Victoria and her advisors, Amara placed a folder on the table. "TechClean doesn't need to bend itself to fit an old model. We're creating a new one." I declined the offer. "You're turning down $80 million? One of the investors snapped. "No, I'm turning down the loss of what made TechClean different: fairness. Tech freedom isn't meant to serve the powerful, but to empower the ordinary." Victoria remained silent. No sarcasm, no rebuttal. Just a nod, one no longer filled with disdain but with acknowledgement. Lucien stepped forward and took Amara's hand in front of everyone. "She didn't just turn down $80 million. She's building something money can't buy." 3 months later, TechClean partnered with 4 major cities around the world as part of global green tech transition programs. Amara's Clean Communities, Live Communities initiative created over 2,000 new jobs for low-income workers alongside AI skills training. At a TEDx talk, Amara stood before the crowd, holding her familiar white teacup. Behind her, was an image of the blue dress, the handwritten notes, and a question: what would you choose, to be recognized or to be yourself? She smiled. I choose both, but in my way.